Mr. Speaker, it's my constitutionally mandated period as President of our country nears its very end. I come before this august House to perform my last official public duty. I'm grateful for the opportunity to give an accounting of my time in office, spell out the highlights of the state of our nation, and place on record the Ghana I'm handing over to my successor. In accordance with protocol and convention, it is good to see that my wife, First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo, Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia, Second Lady Samira Bawumia, the spouse of Mr. Speaker, Mrs. Alice Adjoa Jonas Bagbin, Chief Justice Gertrude Tokunu and spouse, and justices of the Supreme Court, the representative of the chairperson, Mr. Sam Okujeto, and members of the Council of State, Chief of Staff at the Office of the President, the Honorable Akosua Fremont Oseo Parry, and officials of the Presidency, Secretary to the Cabinet, Ambassador Mercy Deborah Karakari, Chief of Defense Staff of the Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Thomas Opon Pipra, the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Akufu Dampare, and the various service chiefs are all present. The Speaker, the House is also duly honored by the welcome attendance of the former President of the Republic, John Agyekum Kufuor, former First Lady Nana Konadu Agyeman-Rawlings, and the Dean and members of the diplomatic. Mr. Speaker, before I commence my message on the state of the nation, I want to put on record that I am deeply saddened by the devastating fire at Kantomanto Market, which took place yesterday, and has left many traders and their livelihoods in ruins. My thoughts and prayers are with those affected, and I extend heartfelt sympathies to the hard-working traders who have lost their goods and investments. Government stands with you and will work with relevant agencies to ascertain the causes of the fire and to provide the needed support. As a nation that is uniting compassion and solidarity to help those who have suffered losses, together we can extend a helping hand to our fellow Ghanaians in need during this challenging time. Mr. Speaker, it is important to state at the outset that serving the Ghanaian people as President has been the greatest honor of my life.
And that is our President, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, presenting the State of the Nation's address over the weekend in Parliament. Now, the State of the Nation's address addresses issues that, you know, the President was able to achieve. I mean, his achievements, his goals, whatever he did during his tenure, those were the things he presented in Parliament. And so we are going to have a conversation on that, touching on the economic performance, infrastructure, development, education and health, and other, you know, significant issues that we will be talking about. And so you have to stick with us. I have my analyst here, still in the mood. Hello, gentlemen.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so what we just watched was an excerpt, I mean the introduction of the State of the Nation's address. Nana, let me start with you. Let's talk about the economic, you know, performance of Nana Addo's administration. What is your general assessment of that?
I feel before even infrastructural development, before other sectors of government or comes to play, of our society comes to play, the actual dictator of performance is the economic performance.
Exactly.
People want to see money in their pockets, being able to afford things and all that. Talking about the economy, in 2017, when His Excellency from Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo was given his introductory speech, he mentioned that he has come to inherit a Gaggisberg economy. And what he meant by the Gaggisberg economy, as we aimed to seek clarification on, was that he inherited an economy that exported raw materials without any value addition. That is what he mentioned. That since the days of Sir Gordon Gaggisberg, time immemorial, before independence, what we did was to just extract our raw materials and then just export them just as they were. So his government should be judged based on his ability to be able to add value to our raw materials and export them. So if you are going to judge as to whether he's been successful, I think it's fair. It's only fair that we judge him based on his own words, and to see whether he was indeed successful in that particular regard. Now, when you look at the economy and then the value addition that he sought to do on all his flagship programs that he had, one of the ones that you can actually pay close attention to say that he's going to was going to help sort of transform the economy in terms of being a Gaggisberg economy was the One District, One Factory flagship program. So now, the less said, the better about it. I mean, there are conflicting views as to how that particular policy has performed. Should we say that policy has performed very, very well? There are very few of such factories that we could see that were functioning in its full capacity from 2017 up to now. So, and now looking at, I also think that the real state of the nation's address is reflected at the end of the polls. It's reflected by the decisions that people went to exercise or franchise at the polls, and also the humbling nature of the MPP defeat and the landslide victory by the NDC goes to show that not all was well when it comes to the economy and how His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's government performed. So that's why I can say.
Randolph, let me come to you. One way we can also assess President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's economic performance is to have a comparison between the previous administration and this administration. So that is former John Dramani Mahama, who is now coming to be president again. So that was 2017 till now. According to research, it says that during Mahama's time, one of the major issues that affected the economy was energy crisis, where we had doing so being very prevalent in our country. We also had high inflation and also rising public debt as well. And Mahama focused on infrastructure, leaving out fiscal management and other things. Now, Nana Akufo-Addo also came in and COVID-19 hit his administration, and that has been something he's been talking about all the time, because he says we saw a speedy recovery, the economy recovering speedily from the pandemic and other things. Now, comparing the two, you mentioned One District, One Factory as one of his transformative ways of also transforming the economy. Nana said we haven't really seen how impactful that policy has been. What is your take on that? Do you also think Nana is right, or you have a different view of that?
Okay, so thank you. Talking about Nana Akufo-Addo's tenure and relating to economy and other sectors. In fact, the economy is actually the major part of it in terms of to do any good analysis. But then, Nana Addo's tenure in office has been a mess feeling something. He's chopped some successes and some challenges has also come to bear. You mentioned that we can do how do I call it? Comparison. Comparison. The economy before NPP came into office.
The pre-2017
Mahama left President Mahama then times left a debt to GDP ratio of 72.6%.
Okay.
Of the budget and a budget deficit of 9%. A foreign reserve of 2.5 months or 2.5 months of import cover and 3.3% of GDP growth before leaving power.
Okay.
Amidst IMF,
the GDP growth, is it year on year or it was just
that's a total GDP growth as at the time he was exiting. I'm also going to do the comparison to the current, as he also stated in his how do I call it, State of the Nation address. Yes. So let me point again. President Mahama left a debt to GDP ratio as in 72.6%.
But then, in as much as possible, we would have to also quantify that particular
no problem. Let me
ratio.
Let me end here.
At the time, GDP was this, and then the debt was this. So we have to.
That is what I've actually stated everything. I said debt to GDP. Man left a debt to GDP ratio of 72.6%. Budget deficit of 9%, foreign reserve of 2.5 months, you get it, of import cover, and 3.3% of GDP growth, domestic, GDP growth before leaving power in 2007.
Let's look at,
and including IMF bailout at that period. And then by the end of November, when I checked my data, end of November, current government's debt to GDP ratio is 74.6%.
you mean November 2024?
2024.
Okay.
Reserve of 3.5 months. You get it?
Okay.
Import covers. And then GDP growth of 6.9% and projected to grow within 6% within the next quarter, by the close of December, end of December, which I believe that reflected. You see, President Akufo-Addo,
but wait, we not to cut you short, but when we are picking up these figures and these values, we have to find out as to whether it's a year on year.
Why don't you leave me to finish my submission?
Okay, you finish your submission first, because we don't want to have the.
Don't worry. It's the same data.
We are comparing oranges
the same data.
Apples. Yes.
No, the same data that he channeled during his State of the Nation address. That's his final data.
Okay.
And the same data that the current government has virtually also channeled out.
Okay.
It is State of the Nation address. That is the same thing I'm actually bringing out.
Yeah, give us assessments.
Looking at this, you realize that in performance per the data, the current President Akufo-Addo has probably done a bit more than. When you are comparing this data, we are talking about data, right?
Course,
you said we should do comparison.
Yeah.
In fact, he has done so well comparing this data. This data. The challenge there comes that, you see, President Akufo-Addo in his State of the Nation address, and per what we've all experienced within this past 8 years, we can attest that has had so many challenges in terms of the economy. The economic growth has actually there was some kind of economic growth, and there was some kind of hitches that actually hit the economy. Whereas you mentioned the COVID, and then other things that also came, where dollar ratio, dollar to CD depreciation and all that. So there has been 50-50 kind of way. But then, as you know, people actually align their lives to those data and of course what they are able to feel and to. But then in some kind of ways you can see that there has been a consistent 5% growth per year. You get it, irrespective of the challenges that his government had.
Okay.
When it comes to education, or
No. We are staying on the economy for a
so
very
the
long time
economy
because-
has had so many challenges under his tenure, and the economy has also done well. COVID, the economy did some kind of well, and then post-COVID was when our challenges started.
Exactly.
But then, I mean, we all know the investment that went into it. There are some, narratives saying that even though there were COVID challenges, but then there could have been more done, or we could have done better. But then these things are all, views that we can consider. But then there were challenges and some successes chalked.
Okay. Let me just bring something in view. Case in point, like he mentioned the debt to GDP ratio and all that. But now let's look at from 2008 to 2016.
16, okay.
And the total year under review when the late Professor Evans Atta Mills and then President-elect Dramani Mahama were in power.
Okay.
Now, for those 8 years, they borrowed a total, because we talked about debts to GDP. So we don't just look at the ratios, but we want to quantify it in nominal terms.
Yes.
So they borrowed about 112 billion Ghana cedis.
Yes.
And some millions.
Yes.
And now, when you compare, I know a lot of people talk about COVID and how the economy has to come under a lot of resurgence and all that. But when you compare the first 5 years under, that's before the impact of the COVID actually hit, under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, now he borrowed over 400 billion Ghana cedis.
Okay.
So now when you borrow as much, you would expect that the GDP would also go in that particular regard. So you may actually be having a debt to GDP ratio of say I may be having 76%, you may be having 72%.
Yeah.
But nominally speaking, when you're quantifying it in terms of how much we are going to repay in the long term, how much debt burden you've actually placed on the country, then you realize that that's why I was saying that we don't necessarily just have to mention the
No, I understand that very well.
Have to express it in nominal terms.
But see,
then you realize that the ratios may be tilting it in a particular favor or in a particular line that you may be performing so well.
Nana,
but
some people have also asserted that the dollar rate as at then is not the same as what we are experiencing now.
No, and this was in Ghana cedis.
Yes, the same.
It's not the same thing.
No, but it's
wait.
No, you are in charge of maintaining the dollar rate.
Okay.
You not let the dollar rates go up and then you come and blame me that you borrowed this and then when you quantify it in Ghana cedis.
No, that is also not accurate.
I'm talking about the first 5 years.
Okay.
The first 5 years when you look when you look at the first 5 years, and now you are talking about the dollar rates and all that. Now you also have to look at things. I'm talking about things in nominal terms.
I understand you.
And when you are talking about things in nominal terms, you are talking about the inclusion of the inflation.
Everything. I understand. I wanted to come to the inflation later.
So now, when you are saying that 400 billion because of the dollar rate, you are in charge of the dollar rate.
Yes.
And then when we are talking about nominal terms, we are talking about the fact that 112 billion nominally, 400 billion are the same.
What's the percentage? What's the percentage? About how many percentage are we looking at?
If we are to look at in a span of 8 years.
Yes.
So in a span of 8 years.
Just a moment.
In a span of 5 years.
But I'm coming. No, that's not. It wasn't. No. Before
that is actually.
Wait, it's not just 5 years.
The first 5 years.
Nana, please allow Randolph.
No, I want him to make his point.
So let me make my point.
Not to also say that my facts were not accurate.
No, in terms of when President Mahama was exiting power, what was actually the debt ratio?
You don't have the mandate to ask questions.
Okay.
The
debt to GDP ratio was 76 points, I think 5%.
No, but I want to know the debt. At stake. We know. It was 100 and how much?
112 billion Ghana cedis.
That is Mahama when.
Mahama
Gentlemen,
and
let's calm down. Let's calm
that
down.
was Mahama
The point I want to make is that
Ivan Sata Mills.
Layman.
yes, the
Right.
point I want to make is that he went back to President Atta Mills.
Atta Mills and Mahama combined.
Mahama's administration.
It is the same.
That's the NDC
So when
administration.
Mahama was hesitant, how much was it?
So that's why I mentioned.
That was
Total
over
of-
200 billion.
No, no.
How
it was
much?
112 billion.
When Mahama was hesitant.
That was being borrowed.
No,
That was
he's
borrowed.
being borrowed. I
Gentlemen,
understand.
From
let's-
20,
wait.
from
Okay,
20,
so let's
from
come back.
2008
Let's come
to
back.
2016.
Gentlemen.
No, to 2016.
Let's
Yes.
To
come
2016.
back to the issues
Yes.
on grounds, right?
Yeah.
So-
we are sticking to the State of the Nation's address.
Yes.
And I brought up this comparison,
Yes.
but it looks like we are taking our viewers.
No, he is not
aback.
making
So
me speak.
let's come back to the understanding of a layman. The
Yes.
president said we are not broke as a country,
Yes.
and that he's leaving behind $8 billion as gross international reserve
Yes,
for
that
the
is
country.
the figures that I
Now,
mentioned earlier.
that's what you
But I
mentioned
wanted
earlier.
to briefly come with something. You know, when President Kufuor came and he was leaving, the debt that was there at the time that he left was 9 billion.
Okay.
In 2008, go and check. It was 9 billion. 9 billion was a debt from Kwame Nkrumah's time.
Wait, was it $9 billion or
Please.
9 billion Ghana
It's the
cedis?
same thing that was quoted in Parliament. So you hold on. We
So give
deal
us the
with
currency.
No, we want to know the currency.
it was in Ghana cedis.
Okay.
9 billion Ghana cedis.
Yes.
Well, I would have to fact
So
check
you can
that
find
to
it.
know that, yes.
So it was 9 billion. That was the debt.
Okay.
You get it? That was the debt. And the same from that time when President Mills and President Mahama came to power. When they were leaving, Ghana from 9 billion to 100 and how much? You mentioned it.
112 billion.
112 billion.
Ghana
Look
cedis.
at
An increment.
no, from 9 billion, 10 billion, 2050 up to 100 and something.
And
So,
then-
But you'd also,
the reason why.
you'd also no,
Yes.
no, but
I want to make this point.
you'd also have to
Wait, Nana,
accept
I want
the
to
fact
make a
that
point.
in 2007,
I understand. Let me finish my.
His Excellency
let me finish my
John
point.
Ajekum Kufuor
I understand.
Let's
had
Let me.
his debt forgiven.
No problem.
Took us to
let,
him.
let me. Let me.
You just
Let me.
dominated the
I
scene.
understand
you have
that.
the chance to
I understand
So
that.
justify
that
Point
and
out-
what I mentioned
I understand.
was the total
You
amount
finish.
borrowed.
It is the same. It's our
Please,
debt.
So then,
Please.
so
When
so-
he was
so-
leaving.
so then- so-
Randolph, please, I'm the one coordinating.
yes.
At the end of the day, we want to educate and inform our
Yeah.
viewers,
Yeah, very
right?
much.
We don't want to miscommunicate
No,
here.
at all.
Yes, and we are dealing with facts,
Very-
right?
yes.
very much.
And so if you don't allow the other person to talk, it makes it very clumsy and people lose the essence of the conversation. So
Yeah,
please,
spot
Nana,
on.
allow Randolph to make his point. When he's done, you also make your point. But Randolph,
Okay.
please, give us the clear difference
The clear difference.
so that we can move on.
The clear difference is that, you know, as I was saying, President Mahama, when he was exiting, the debt was over 100 billion. But then the whole thing is that, you see, Ghana, the debt will keep increasing because government do not transact business.
So, okay, so I made mention of the fact that we want to stick to issues, right?
Yes, that is what I'm actually trying
Yes,
to
I
make.
made the point that the president said the country is not broke.
Yes.
And that he's leaving behind $8 billion as gross international reserve for the
Yeah.
country. And looking at what he has done, he sees that we have a lot of money in this country, but it is up to the management of these funds or resources that will lead us to that economic growth or relief we want. Now, in your take, he's saying we are not broke, but we're in this country. Last year, we saw the number of people that went on the streets to demonstrate, to protest for good work conditions, good living conditions. And somewhere mid last year, we experienced a high, inflation in prices, goods and services in this country.
But then,
the president has also, institutions like NAPCO, NSS, WAEC, they all came out to say that government is owing them. And so why do we have issues like this happening? And then the president also says we are not broke. Nana, come to you.
No, just a little fact checking. The currency was in dollars.
It was in dollars.
And then it was also $10 billion.
$10 billion.
10 or 9 billion.
$10 billion.
It was a little, okay, no, that's
Yes.
okay.
So we have to fact
So
check.
I want to ask you, he
Yes.
said we are not broke.
Yes.
Is that the issue on the ground?
You see, a country's wealth is actually, when it comes to it, quantified in resources, the human capital, and then let me say some kind of liquidity, and also how best you have invested in the economy into the future. You can see that most of the investment or the things that the President Nana Addo has done, they are projects that actually I see them as a futuristic project, which Ghana will yield those results in years to come.
This was the same president when he wanted to come into power in 2017. Debunked all the things that Mahama was doing, because we realized that Mahama was much into infrastructure development, and as we also wanted to fill the monies in our pockets, he was building. Nana came and said, so they are going to give us what we want. And so if you are telling me or justifying the fact that we are not broke by futuristic projects, then it looks as if you were not truthful to
No, this is how it is. It's done. No government will come and then will ask people to be in queue to be given money.
Sure.
So what you do as a government is that you put together projects or you bring initiatives that will empower the people, initiatives that will create the avenue for the systems to work.
And one of that was the one district, one factory.
I'm coming there. One of them is the one district, one factory.
And how many people?
One district, one factory was a project that, to some extent, it wasn't a total failure, because some factories, over 100 and something factories are running, and the project, they are running, honestly. There have been so many, factories. I'm not here to, I wasn't here, I wasn't alerted. I would have actually brought in some. Some projects are working, and it's a project that wasn't a government-owned project. It was for the government to help private sector to build the enabling environment for them to access loans, access the facilities needed and all the resources for them to be able to strive on to build the market and then the economy, which to some extent they were able to. But as you know, the government did not totally own that project, and it wouldn't even be a good advice or a good judgment for the government to own those projects, because successively we have been able to collapse all government related companies. So that is there, and these are projects that I know, it's actually making some strive in a way. What they are projects that I believe that something like the youth empowerment, where by the time they were leaving, they are leaving. I know they have run a lot of projects and programs that has empowered the youth in entrepreneur. I even had people that attended those entrepreneurial programs, and they giving them and all those stuff. So there are a lot of projects that the government has done, which I believe amidst the challenges when it comes to tourism, when it comes to education, when it comes to infrastructure. And these are projects that I believe that when you are able to do them, you do not get immediate response in your economy. So it takes time. It takes time to get there.
Let's take the short break. When we come back, Nana will also give us his thoughts on whether we are broke as a country or not. And so viewers, you can also send in your comments whilst we take. When we come back, we'll read your comments shortly. Thank you very much, and stay with us. We'll be right back.
Yeah, hit you.
And you're welcome back to Paul on Clock TV. I am Miriam Abna Adede. We've been discussing the State of the Nation's address presented by President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo over the weekend, and we've been talking about the economic growth and the achievements so far. Randolph and Nana Asare have been doing justice to that. But before we went for the break, Nana, you wanted to make a point.
Yes, so we were talking about the performance of the economy under the NPP, and then we were talking under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and we're talking about the total debt that has been.
I have a comment here in relation to the Kufuor administration.
Yes.
So please, Ghana's debt before Kufuor left power was 9.5 billion and not 10 billion. In fact, it was 9 billion.
It wasn't 10 billion.
Before
It's in
Kufuor
dollars.
left, depreciation
It's in
led
dollars.
to our
Whether
debt
dollar or
going
CD,
up.
it is billion.
Yeah, the person didn't add the currency, but
It's in dollars.
Fred, thank you so much.
So
for
with
bringing
what
your
I'm
message.
also checking over here, it says
It's a
10,
debt,
10,
so
it says
it's a
10 billion.
foreign. It's a foreign debt. But then that time I remember it was 9. It wasn't even up to 10.
Okay.
So let's say 9.5 as you say.
Sure.
But that was right.
And that is in nominal terms. So
Whether
now,
nominal.
no, that is that is in nominal
a debt
terms.
is a currency. You get it. When you go for loan, that is where it is a loan.
A debt
It's
cannot
a
be
debt.
only
Yes.
foreign
Okay,
debt.
let
In
me
fact,
ask this
when we
question.
even
Let's drop this and let me ask you this question.
Yes.
Now, we know one of the ways that President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo wanted to boost the economy was through the introduction of more taxes,
Yes.
where we had the emission tax, COVID-19 tax, and other things.
Apparently, not even more taxes, because according to their, when you look at the economic messiah, as they called him, Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, the chairman of the Economic Planning Committee, that's of Ghana, under the NPP,
Akufo-Addo's administration.
yes. So you realize that when they were actually campaigning, one of the things that they were mentioning was that they are coming to reduce the taxes that we have. They are coming to we are coming to prevent us from going to IMF, coming to prevent us from borrowing.
Exactly, but we went to IMF
So
anyways.
we are coming to generate our own internal funds, coming to fight corruption and all that. So now, still bring me to the debt
Nana, you
issue.
didn't allow me to ask my
Sorry,
question.
you
So I'm saying that with the existence of these taxes, we
Yes.
still had some kind of hardship with the economy. And now the incoming government, which is the NDC, are saying they are going to scrap it off in their first 100 days in office when they come in. But I think I saw a video this morning circulating that John Dramani Mahama said they are going to rationalize the taxes instead of scrapping it off. A renowned pastor in this country has also come out to advise the president not to scrap off, especially the e-levy, because it is really going to be beneficial to his governance. Now we don't have the toll booths anymore. So where does he intend to get the money? Let's take a look at that video. When we come back, you give me your assessment on that.
But you didn't let me give my assessment on the debt issue that we were talking
I
about.
asked you, Nana.
About the debt,
You've been talking about nominal terms and other things.
So if I may,
Okay. In a minute,
before
so that we take the
we were just to clarify things, we were talking about the debts that the various regimes have actually incurred. We talked about Kufuor's regime, which was $10 billion. That
when he was leaving, Ghana's debt was $10 billion.
Mind you, hold on, that doesn't mean that was the total amount that he borrowed.
Okay.
Because mind you, we went to HIPIC in 2006, approved in 2007, redenominated our CD, and then just in that particular short space of time, that is from 2007 to 2008, within the space of 1 year, Ghana's debt became the $9.5 billion.
So Nana, what is
we are
your
talking about.
assessment?
So we are talking about the amount of money that has been borrowed. When you are talking about the looking at how robust our economy has been over the past years and how our dependence on debt has been. So we are not only talking about the ratios as we are seeing in the addresses and all that, because they can definitely be misleading.
Exactly.
When we talk about debt, we talk about debt in its real terms. That is, you include the inflation factor and then you make the analysis on them. And then you don't also talk about just debt on its own as a vacuum. You talk about debt and its serviceability, how you'll be able to repay the debt that you've borrowed. Now, in 2000, I have these statistics over there. J.E.A. Mills, for the time that he was president, he borrowed 26.16 billion Ghana cedis. And then John Dramani Mahama borrowed thereafter him, that's 86.26 billion Ghana cedis. So when you combine the two of them, that is where you have the 112 billion Ghana cedis. So now, then we go under Akufo-Addo, under his first 4 years as president, he borrowed a total of 169.37 billion Ghana cedis, and all these are in nominal terms, not in real terms, without inflation being added on it. And then in his second tenure, this is up as at September, so that is without the $3 billion that came later in December. So the total was 283.37 billion Ghana cedis. So in total, when you add 169.37 plus 283.37 billion Ghana cedis, you realize that the amount of money that he's borrowed is vast. But that notwithstanding, we have to also talk about the impact of the COVID and then how it's impacted our economy.
Ukraine,
and then we also we also have to talk about the fact that the country we did a lot of financial cleansing when the NPP came into power. That's the restructuring of the banks, and that alone in itself is a different argument on its own. But these are the facts that we have to put on.
So in your assessment, would you say President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has done well in managing the economy or stabilizing the economy?
As before I began speaking, I mentioned that the true state of the nation's address is what we exercise at the polls. Because when people are confident in you, right, they actually vote for you to continue, which we saw in 2020, when we went to the polls, in the December 7th polls in 2020. We realized that a lot of people showed faith in the Akufo-Addo government, and then they gave him the nod to come on. And now when you look at the humbling and the landslide victory of the NDC, that should actually tell you the true state of the economy and how people are thinking about this. It's not as though it was competitive. It was done before even the EC had finished collating their results. So that should show you how real people are feeling, the people's perception of the economy.
It's true. Okay, so let's take the video let's take that video. When we come back, we'll have an analysis on that.
It's going to be very difficult here. No, I told one politician yesterday, don't deceive yourself to think that you are going to change Ghana in a year. In a year. When the damage is deep, the renovation is expensive. If you're not problem, say something. When the damage is deep, so you are not, say don't get too excited and don't lift people's hopes. Tell President Mahama, he should not cancel the yield levy tax. He will need it. He shouldn't cancel. He should not. I was praying for him. The Lord told me. He said, "Don't let the people lead you." One of the essence of leadership is that you make difficult decisions for people. Don't cancel it. Keep the yield levy and bring the toll booths back. Hear this. Even developed countries, they pay toll. Bring them back. May the Lord give him good advices. No, it doesn't cost us anything. Now, by this time, we are already used to paying that levy tax. Use it. Use it. Maybe decide that you will use that to maintain roads in Ghana. Find the process that can. You are either leading the people or
City Chapel, Prophet Nanase Opoku with his Sarkodie, with his statement over there advising the president-elect John Dramani Mahama not to scrap off the e-levy because he is going to that. Randolph, let me come to you. Were you expecting these kind of prophecies? Because as I said earlier, I saw a video of Mahama also saying he is not going to scrap it off up front, but he's going to rationalize it and make it in a way that will, but that was different from what he said during his campaign. What's your take on that?
You see, politicians give themselves up so easily, and it makes people trusting politicians very difficult.
Yeah.
Because we have made deception a hallmark, and it it impedes the credibility of politicians, and this is actually one of them. It's unfortunate that President Mahama would have to go in that tangent, and in fact, this is not a prophecy. I don't see this to be a prophecy. If you ask, if
this is an admonishment.
This is not even something a man of God should tell you. It is something that, in reality, it doesn't even make sense that you scrap some of these things. This is because, one, even when Vice President said he was going to scrap some of these things, I disagreed. And I made it known because we are in a country whereby one, the people who pay taxes are fewer people. Those who are in the government sector and who pay taxes directly. Those who are in the government sector, private sector, regulated industry, they pay their taxes even before their salaries are received. And how many are they? Beyond that, the taxes that government is taking from individuals, or let me say our revenue being taken, or government revenue that it accrues every month, statistics tells us that about 80% of that taxes that we pay, and all that from the port and harbor and all that, about 80% goes into salaries. Do you get it? 80% of what government revenue is goes into salary. That is what they used to pay us. And at the end of the day, we are left with how much? 20%.
20%, yeah.
Can 20% build roads?
No.
Can it build, schools, hospitals, or, all this infrastructure?
And
so at the end of the day...
Where were these analyses before they cancelled out the things?
I'm coming.
Adding up to what she said, he also made mention of the fact that in his first 100 days in office,
I'm coming.
They are going to make tertiary education also free.
That is true.
Or academic for first-year tertiary students, and also very free for disabled and other policies that demand a lot of revenue. So I'm making this point to end somewhere. So we know clearly, and the politician, both President Kufuor, both, President Bawumia, whoever is contesting and is even qualified to contest, knows this as a basic rule that the people in the country are not paying taxes because we are not well structured. GRA is unable to even reach to them, where they are supposed to. Artisans who are the major people, in the economy, they are not paying taxes. Our market women are not paying taxes. So the only means that to be able to get them is some of these taxes, which, yes, the politician will say it's a nuisance tax. NPP came to power. Of course, there were about 17 taxes that they aligned to be nuisance taxes. They abolished them. But they realized that no, we cannot abolish them forever. And they brought in some of these electronic taxes, which is the e-levy and all those things. And this is because when you are able to institute some of these taxes, you get a direct tax payment by almost everybody. Even those
are artisans who are the mason, because when you do a transaction and everyone is probably now on the mobile money, so automatically the person gets to pay something for other development.
But why did they scrap off the toll booths,
Yes.
which was also something that was...
Toll booth money was very minute.
That is what you think.
No, I'm coming. You see, look, it's important, but then
Because we do not have a problem with paying that.
no
as
problem.
compared to
Those
the
things are
e-levy.
some of the political expediency. I mean, let me say the populist. I mean, I was also against the toll booths. I mean, scrapping of the toll booth. This is because there are some of the things. These are populist. That is why President Mahama went on the stage to say, "I'm going to scrap this. Listen, look at." As if they didn't know. They knew the figures because every document goes through Parliament. But they were on campaign platforms saying, "I'll scrap this off, I'll scrap this off, I'll scrap this off," and then you know that we are actually using almost 80% of revenue to pay salaries.
Okay.
The 20%, can the 20% build infrastructure? Can it? I mean, the same 20%, you are saying you are going to now, how do I call it? Free education, bring the private sector, private schools into free education. Do we have money? No. You are saying you are going to do free tertiary institution. Do we have money? No. Really? But yet you said you are going to scrap all these.
Okay.
I want to make a point here, just to end. When you make all these promises, and you are being voted for, and you come back through other channels, because I mean, right the first week after election, Setekpe came to pitch that, came to make that pitch, that, it's not advisable to scrap some of these things, and all that was a foundation, it's politics. And he came back to say, we are going to rationalize it. What is the rationalization? When you know
I understand
that you need money, you need money to do all these projects. So now if you've told the people have entrusted you that I'm going to scrap this, and you come and now you are telling us you are going to do rationalization. Was that the contract you had with the people?
Okay, so it is.
Is it not deception?
It is also taking my mind back to the free SHS policy that the
Yes.
NPP also brought on board. When you came, you presented it as free for everyone.
Yes.
And then later we realized that it was really becoming a burden on the economy of the country.
And it will always be a burden.
Exactly. Was it that, or is it that these, I'm talking about the two parties or two governments, they don't really plan or have a pre-planning on how to execute these policies before they just say them, or it is just part of the political game?
No, I don't even want us to do the NPP and NDC here.
Because what we are saying here was the
Yes.
same thing that happened when free
Perfect.
SHS was also introduced.
I understand.
Eventually,
Every
it didn't
policy-
become free after all.
I understand.
Yeah.
Every policy have its challenges. And that challenge would eventually happen because policy hasn't, most policies that are rolled up, even outside the country or other, developed countries, there are policies that they go through transformation until it becomes better.
Okay.
You get it? Free education has never been practiced by any government in our jurisdiction before, even in Africa. Total free education, it has never been practiced. So, of course, if you start implementing such a policy, just like the president said during the launch of the free education, he said they anticipate a lot of challenges.
Okay.
Do you get it?
Then
but then
the same
mine
thing
is
should be applied
It shouldn't. You see, when we do,
scrapping
I don't. Yes, but you see, when we do it this way, we are always going to have that deficit in terms of the debts. So once you know that you cannot scrap this policy, these taxes, and the people need to pay taxes, I tell you, give me the next, by 1 year time, other taxes will be added.
Hold on.
So you get it? So it is unfair to do this.
So Nana, please come in with your points.
So yes,
You don't need a pastor to tell you this. They will not do it.
Definitely, these are assertions by the pastor. He says that God, he spoke to God while he was praying, and then God told him that we shouldn't cancel the
You don't need God to even tell you this. You do need God to tell you need money for your projects.
Rightly so. Looking at the nature of our country and the way we collect revenue, and the e-levy came in at a point and was very unpopular. But as Raindrop said, a lot of people are now used to it at the moment. But that notwithstanding, the NDC must have known something, and they must have had plans in place to make sure that they'll be able to follow suit on their word, just as you pointed out. The NPP also came out and said they are going to make free SHS free and all that. And then when, in reality, they made it happen. So they are, let me not say ways and means to actually make sure that this happens. But also on the subject of talking about the using taxes to pay the percentage of tax that's going to be used to pay how do you call it workers. Now when you look at it that way, it's going to be a lot one-sided, and it's going to not show the actual true picture. When you look at Ghana's GDP, right, as a whole, and you look at a percentage of the GDP that is used into taxes, it's just 2.6%. So you can see that there's room for, there are different ways of calculating GDP. There's the product method or the production method, there's the expenditure method. So it's just 2% of the expenditure method when you're looking at this particular way that's used to service, that's public services and civil service staff, their salaries and all that. So that is one way to also look at it, that you don't only generate revenue from government via taxes. There are state-owned institutions that work. You have foreign exchange and all that. And all of them come into force when you're calculating.
But the truth is that how many government agencies are raising revenues for government?
So now
it is virtually a free work.
No.
So you always have to go to the
not that per se, but that's why I took it from the angle of the GDP, the gross domestic.
I understand that.
So now when you look at it economically, looking at only taxes, and because taxes are also used for various things, and you don't just compare the total salaries to be paid out to taxes that when you look at the GDP, it's just 2.6%. That means there are other. What
is other source of money? I mean, or other source of income for government to? It's purely we are going back to loan.
It's not.
No, we are virtually going back to
loan only per se, but government has its.
That one is there.
That's what I'm saying. That there are different ways of calculating GDP.
Sure.
And we talked about the production.
That one, let us be realistic here.
We are being realistic, and the realistic part is that it's just 2.6%. And what I'm trying to say is that just before you actually hit and say that it's a non-starter, they can't do it and all that, these are people that have come in, and we voted for them based on the promises that they've given us. So if they said they are going to scrap out betting tax, they are going to scrap out e-levy, they should have some policies or plans in place to make sure that is done.
Now they are telling their rationalizing.
When the MPP came,
tell us everything.
When the MPP came and said they are going to make SHS free, you know,
they didn't tell us how
exactly that it was eventually done.
Yeah.
So these are I think sitting here to talk about the fact that they can't do it and all
I'm not saying they can't do it. But
that's
no. I mean, President Mahama has said he's not going to rationalize it. Was that the contract?
Exactly.
No,
was that? No, he didn't say. Oh, the e-levy. I mean, he said you are paying.
Saying that the fact that he said he was going to scrap
he didn't say
means he should scrap it off.
The thing is, even the MPP, when they came, it was 1.5%, you know. And then later on, they realized that it was placing undue burden on the Ghanaian populace. So they restructured it and made it 1%. Okay. So in the long run, maybe he may have plans to sort of scrap it, but then he may start by saying that, now let me just make it 0.5%.
No,
and then later
no.
on we'll
Mine
scrap
is
it off.
that. Mine is that.
So these are the
Nania.
these are the terms that he
Nania.
says he's going to
Nania.
rationalize.
Nania.
And
Let
he
us be
didn't
fair
only
here.
say he's going to rationalize. He said he's going. He didn't mention e-levy or betting tax. He said he's going to rationalize taxes within the first 100 years of his term.
No. That is not true. No, he didn't say that. He mentioned the e-levy and the thing. He said when President Mahama was speaking, he said recently, I think that's this weekend or so, he said he made mention that the current government have used the e-levy and other some of these taxes as collateral for loan and also the IMF something. You get it.
So definitely, even if
No, okay, so please, we have a comment here. Let me take it and then prompt our viewers that this number you are seeing on your screens is the WhatsApp number. So please, it is WhatsApp, not call. Those calling the number, we have our call number. The call number should also be displayed so they get to see it. So please, stop calling. So what you are seeing now is the call number. 0500-500423 0500-500423. That is the call number. Now we have this from ESCO. He's saying the outgoing president doesn't want current president to default payment. Asemo. I am Eric from Amasama. I'm watching you live. Good work. Okay, Clock TV. Thank you so much, Eric, for bringing in your comments. Now, gentlemen, let's take two issues, okay? I like the back and forth, but I mean, sometimes we need to give some clear definitions, to our viewers so that they understand what we are doing. Now, so Nana, you make your point, and then Rindolph, who was talking actually?
He has done with his point. You see, briefly, the thing is that you said, he mentioned betting tax, e-levy, COVID-19, whatever. You mentioned all of them.
My question remains
that the first 100 days,
he's going to scrap
I'm going to scrap it.
Right.
And then you come and you said now.
Even God, whenever he makes
no, we shouldn't.
Sometimes he changes his mind.
I understand that.
So I'm just asking. So the fact that he said he was going to scrap it off, does that mean that
was the contract? That was the social contract you have with the people.
So
you get it. So when we do that,
when I come into power, I should scrap it off, even when it affects us.
Wait. So So does it mean? It means on the campaign grounds, everybody can lie, and then you get it when you can say all kind of stuff, and then when you come into power, you said, "Oh, me sorry, now me say." I mean, at the end of the day. When the next election,
we know that, not to cut you, but we know that definitely things are different when it comes to these things.
Okay, so Nana, I don't read off to.
Let me end. Yes. So mine is that when you campaign on things you can do. When you're on a platform and you can do A, B, C, D, say you do. You can't tell us that. You can't tell us that you are having. Oh, I'm going to how do I call it? Private schools, or I'm going to enroll all of them into free education. And then when you come, and then you now come and say, oh, looking at the economy, maybe I cannot do it, and so maybe let us I mean, that thing has happened before. Ghanaians were promised one-time premium health insurance. Do you have that before? Under President, the then candidate, and Atamels, and then his vice president, President John Dramani Mahama, one-time premium. When he came, that was it. It didn't happen. He has come again. He said, "I'm going to give you free. I'm going to scrap all this in the first 100 days."
Okay.
And then you come again and said, "Oh,
Ghanaians are being taken for a ride."
Yeah, I mean that is unfair.
Exactly.
Well,
people went to vote based on this.
Even there was a person.
The boys, the youths who were.
One man that had a contract to God and said he's going to build him a cathedral.
No, that one. He and his God will be there. But now,
I'm not saying that change, Rindolph. You need to understand that.
I understand change is important,
and it happens.
But then, should we keep doing that as a country?
No.
Where the youth went to the polls based on their betting. They said, oh, boys, you guys, I mean, because there's no employment, and so, I mean, there's more money, I mean, bets, you are being taxed and all that, so I'm going to scrap it.
He actually mentioned that he's going to scrap it.
Yes.
But then
Okay,
now,
so we have a caller on the line. We have Samson from Takoradi. Hello, Samson.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can Samson speak up?
Hello, Samson. Can you please speak up?
Okay, so please, I want to make a contribution and submission to the discussion. Actually, one of your panelists was making a point that if you make a promise to the general public as a term as social contract, you are not supposed to breach it. And with that, I have a question because when you look at the previous government, for example, they made it known to Ghanaians about the bad state of the economy, and they used even an exchange rate as a point of contact. But now they came down to the office and they told us that sake of COVID-19, sake of Russia-Ukraine war, you can't do whatever you are supposed to do. So what one of your panelists is saying, he shouldn't be so biased on matters saying that since the president-elect has made his point, A, B, C to the general public, probably he's obliged to go by that. Because when you compare these both issues you're talking about, the previous government makes a lot of promises to Agenda 111. Let's ask your panelists if we can give more information on that. The previous government made the promises on one factory, one dam, like one factory, one district, and this one dam, one factory issue. Let's ask the panelists, can you say more about that in 8 years in government? The previous government also made a point where he was even telling us that every district is going to be entitled to an amount of money every year. That's almost 2 billion. Where is that thing coming from? So we are moving into a situation where we all want betterment for Ghana. So I think that in the conversation going on, the panelists shouldn't be biased from a political party. Well, we seem to be talking to the political party. We want to rebuild because the current situation is fine ourselves. So I think that we shouldn't make it known, assuming that anything the person has said, as one of the panelists said, I like that because when you are behind the scene, you view things differently. But when you come into the scene, things might look differently. That is what current vice president told us. When he was a vice president, and he told us that he's not having the mandate for him to control the affairs of the country. Just before you came in, he gets things like this. So we shouldn't make it appear that the president-elect has the power to do this, and because he said this, or maybe some of his followers are making a point that they are going to now relook at the betting tax and that of the COVID-19 tax. Moving forward, the issue from Professor Akodi, that is his opinion or his perception or what he thinks the president-elect should do. That is not something that we should make as if that is what the president-elect is going to do.
Another caller. I think we've lost both callers. Gentlemen, yes. So we all heard from our caller, Randolph, you are being biased.
You see, this is not bias. You see, it's about time we make our politics we do politics with honesty. And this is not only to President Mahama. As you cut across in our political landscape, as it will get to a stage, the people will not trust or believe what the politician goes to say on the platform. Well, you shouldn't always have to
generally speaking, you trust the politicians at your own peril.
Yes, but it shouldn't be so.
But before you put the nail in the coffin, let the person die first.
No.
Let the person not be able to do what he's saying that he's not able to do.
We'll come back.
Then you can crucify him for that.
Okay.
Now he's not yet even in power. He's saying that he's going to rationalize.
Let's take our next caller and then I'll join you guys. Nanaya.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Hey, afternoon.
It's already in the afternoon. Oh.
Yes. I wanted to give a contribution.
Okay.
The panelists, well, thank you for their submissions and all that. One guy was making a suggestion or something, and one of your followers makes some suggestion, I feel these politicians are actually taking Ghanaians for granted. The fact that A did this and it was wrong doesn't mean you should come and repeat the same thing. The fact that A did that and was wrong, that was why A was voted out and you were voted in. It's high time Ghanaians took these people seriously by the things they see. You've been a president before. All the politicians, NPP, NDC, they are all politicians. They know economy, they know everything. So before you come and make noise that people should vote for you because of A or B, how you come do it? Don't come and say that when I was coming, I didn't know it was like this. They should stop that their attitude. And the fact that A didn't do it doesn't give you the right to also do things. I think we've outgrown some of these things, and we should keep them to their word so that they will not be taking us for granted, because that's like the routine. NPP will come and say, oh, A, B, C, D, so vote for me. Then they vote for them. They come into power and they are like, oh, things were different, so they won't do it. Then we fight against it. Another NDC will also come and they will say, oh, vote for me because of A, B, C, D. They will come and they will do the same thing. So at the end of the day, we are in the same spot. And I think as Ghanaians, we should stop these things. Thank you very much.
Mission. So we heard from Nanaya.
I was on the floor. So you see, so just as Madam,
when we are done, we need to check the time that
no,
you
just
give
2
me to
minutes.
speak and
I mean,
you also give me the chance.
Most of our callers have even identified you as one of the panelists because you talk a lot.
So you see, one thing is that you see, we are growing as a country, and we should actually we should have leaders who have integrity.
Yeah.
And this should not only be President Mahama or whoever. Just as I was against the fact that myself, I was against the fact that NPP promised that, oh, we are going to scrap taxes, nuisance taxes.
Yes.
You scrap the nuisance taxes, and then you brought in other taxes which are equally nuisance, which means you knew the situation, but it was a populist approach. Because you also know that you have parliamentarians, every document about economy, you have them.
Yeah.
You don't have to come to power before you know what is happening. Well, you already know them. You get it. So when you come to power and you always change, you give us A, you show us your character in A character, and then you come to power and you bring us another one. It means next time we won't even take politicians serious, and it's actually going to affect our democracy.
Let's take another caller, Desmond from Kaswa. Hello, Desmond.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Desmond. Can we hear your submission? Can you please move away from your TV set so that we can hear, or lower the volume?
Okay.
Of it? Okay, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I just tuned in, so I only heard a bit about the discussion. I want to know if the two gentlemen they are representatives of either party, either NDC or NPP, or they are only sharing their concern about it.
Just giving their submissions or opinions as to topics that we bring on board. Okay, I think we've lost him.
Yes, so
Nana
has spoken quite a lot.
Let's Nana also.
Let me just make this.
Let's briefly so that we can touch on infrastructure and then.
Okay, so I'll just mention this, that I'm not here based on any political affiliation. So we are here talking about, and most of the time we like to hit on different angles of topical issues so that we can sort of express fully, get the whole concept of things that are going on, and so that's what I want to put out now, and just as I was saying that. Randolph mentioned it clearly that before, politicians should not take us for a ride and all that, and now it's become sort of the language that everyone is speaking. When you look at the results from the previous election, it goes to tell you that now Ghanaians are not going to listen So you do not take us for a ride and then later on come. And then one of the main things was when you saw the NPP campaigning against their own policies that they had implemented. It was a red flag that people said that if you want to say you're cancelling betting tax when you come, why don't you do it now since you're in power? So now everyone, as we always say, eye opened. So it's interesting times ahead. We are going to watch. But one thing that we have to also say is that there are things that are different when you're campaigning. There are things that are on ground when you actually start.
On the ground,
and
they all know it.
And there are things that you begin or you are opened up to when you see the for instance they're saying that the e-levy and all those things. Now when we went for the IMF restructuring, they actually gave us a lot of things to hold on to. For instance, and that's why there's no mass employment in the public space. So there are a lot of things that are,
okay, so we have a caller on the line. Let's take hello. Hello. Okay, we lost him.
So there are a lot of things that come into play when you're
sort of coming into office first. And I must admit, or I must not admit, I must say that it was a rush for the NDC to actually come out to say that we are going to scrap this in our first 100 days in office. It was quite populist because that's what a lot of the masses or a lot of the youth were resonating with. And now they find themselves in a dilemma that they have to actually go in accordance with what they've actually said or end up being unpopular. And which looks likely as what is going to happen, because a lot of people were actually voting for you because we actually knew we saw the likes of Malik Basindali come to say that if they don't scrap the betting tax, he himself will campaign against the NDC. And these are all things that sound quite populist. Now when it comes into play, it's a whole different ball game. As we are trying to see, we are hearing Sir Tepe in his address coming to say that the e-levy is quite important. It has become a fundamental part of the economy and all that. We are seeing John Dramani Mahama saying that we have to rationalize the taxes instead of scrapping them. But I'm sure they should have a plan in place
obviously, I think
to sort of maintain the goodwill. Otherwise, then they obviously people say that the NPP
contract is to scrap it. Any other thing is
the NPP NDC.
But we need that money. We need the e-levy. We need them. Betting tax.
Well, but for instance, you represent a number of people who resonate with your points, right? And you are saying they need it.
What we actually need is to seal the seepages through corruption, because the amount of money that we lose through corruption every day, the amount of dollars under people's beds, the amount of money that state-owned funds that are in custody of individuals.
Yes, even the ones they used to buy cars and other
exactly.
housing.
That is also part of his
so when you look at all these things, you realize that it's not as though we do not generate much, but it's the usage of the little that we generate and the management of the little that we generate that's causing the issues.
Right. Thank you so much for making your points. Now, lastly, let's touch on infrastructure development. Akufo-Addo, President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo made mention of the fact that his governance or administration has done a lot for the country in terms of infrastructure. Looking at the road networks they have built, I think in Sawom road and other roads. Construction. Yes, he has done a lot. Now, my question has to do with policy continuation. As to, is it going to be like that, or the next government is going to take up what Akufo-Addo has left? Because it looks like Akufo-Addo did not continue most of the, infrastructure developments that were put up by.
He continued some, just a few of them.
Of course, the way our democracy is structured, and we do not have a working national development plan or agenda. And so, of course, anybody who comes will initiate his own project. Because, for instance, if President Mahama actually asserted during the campaign that whatever President Akufo-Addo is doing, he is going to continue. And in actual fact, if he is to continue, yes, there will be selections, and most of them will be left, because if he continues, it means his party will definitely lose the next election.
How?
This is because now the two parties are not going to say, oh you even said you were, they came to power and
but that's about
virtually, well, of course, and that is what is going to happen. We know how we do our politics here. And assuming President Mahama came, okay, now Agenda 111, he pumps all the little monies that goes into it. Even his party people will even fight him.
But those are not his.
But that's not supposed to be how. That's not how it's supposed to be. But then
you see, at the end of the day, is it not?
It is Ghana.
But because he also mentioned that we don't have a national plan.
We don't have.
If we had,
you are supposed to toe that line.
If we had one, right? John Dramani Mahama would have told the same line that
exactly.
Akufo-Addo would have told the same line that Mahama was doing in terms of building of hospitals and the likes, without necessarily beginning a whole new infrastructure. Well, now, when we talk about infrastructure, we look at let's take a typical look at roads. Now, very popular ones. We saw the prevalence of commissioning very few months to elections, and back-to-back commissioning. We saw the Obechebi, the one at we saw the Spintex one as well. Currently there's projects being done on the motorway stretch. But now when you look at Tema Central and for instance where in Tema West, the Afiena stretch, which was seen as predominantly to be NDC. Now, you look at the road network that was there, and you look at the sort of developments that was going on when John Dramani Mahama was about to leave office. Now, you realize that from that time, from 2016, there's no work being done on that particular stretch. And that is something that is very, very, it is very disturbing because we've politicized our infrastructural development to areas that benefit us the most.
But some too is as a matter of source of funding. You see, in a government sector, every project has its own source of funding. And so, for instance, if a project that probably is supposed to be a get fund project, and get fund project is allocated, a get fund is allocated for this very project, and they have started it. If another government comes, and there are a lot of things, legalities or not.
Some of these projects have already been funded.
Some of them.
But then we see get funding other projects, even the ones that are not in.
Yes. The source of funding is another problem.
The source of funding could be a problem.
It's a problem.
But then, when you realize that it's not a problem is when that same source of fund is being used for other projects in areas that are popular for a certain political party.
For that one,
so then it becomes the political expediency is a problem because we do not have a working national agenda.
Let's look at the way forward. What do you think the incoming government should do to, toe that line that we've been talking about, that there will be a continuity in, policies and developments that has already been started by the previous government?
I think Rindolph mentioned it, and he hits the nail right on the head, talking about a national agenda. If we should have a 30-year-old plan for infrastructure development, and that should be carved by both parties in parliament. Or maybe it should be carved, I don't know, by a third force or something. If we could have that in place, because we can't get that by a third force, and then all agree to it as a populace, as a country, that this is where in 30 years we are going. Now, that is where everyone is going to be held accountable for. So we have a 30-year-old infrastructure development plan. We have a 30-year-old educational plan. you have a 30-year economic resurgence plan. No, now because you realize that a lot of people come and come and sort of borrow to suit their needs, and now it's who borrowed more, who borrowed less, and not what we've actually done. We should be talking about.
We were borrowing more, and then we were seeing the results.
We should be talking about impacts of the economy in our pockets. We should be talking about jobs being open. We should be talking about a lot of infrastructural development. But then we come and sit here and then talk about the fact that this has borrowed more, this has not borrowed more, and it doesn't just sit well, because in the long run, because we do not have anything to look at to compare to. We do not have a national development plan that we are strictly following and obeying to say that this is what we are supposed to follow, and this is what your tenure as president is going to be judged based on. So since we don't have that, we'll be played.
I was happy when the president mentioned that incoming president should take over from where he has stopped, especially with the Agenda 111 project.
Yes,
where he was just able to commission 3 out of the 111.
But most of
So he said contractors have been deployed to almost all the districts, right? Do we have the funding for such programs that the president is saying that the incoming president should take over? Have they made any funding available for, aside the 8 billion and other, monies that the president mentioned that we have them as our reserves? Do we have some monies for these projects?
You see, there's this issue that I have always said. Our democracy and our system of governance and how our constitution is actually maintained, we will get so far, or it will get very long before we can be able to achieve this agenda something. This is because the constitution gives everybody the chance to create its own idea and then sell it to the Ghanaian population. And so that becomes a working document or a contract between you and the people.
Okay.
So, for instance, you campaign based on A, B, C, D. So even if you come and you do other projects, you leave your project and you do other projects, that also becomes another issue. You get it?
Yeah.
And you are going to be judged, accounted at the end of the 4-year term based on this. And so everybody, when he comes, he realizes that, hey, I cannot leave all my projects and come and continue your project. So at the end of the day, I have to do what? Maybe touch 1 or 2 and then forget the rest and then go and find another money, because most of the times, successive governments sometimes even do not so much disclose so many things in terms of how their funding and other few things are done. Okay. So they look at their priority projects, then they go in for all kinds of resources to build. Then after it becomes a challenge.
Right.
So we need to develop a national development or agenda that we all, and it all have to come back to our constitution, and we restructure and do a whole modification.
So our laws need
a whole lot, so that we can be able to meet.
The session that we need a constitutional
We don't
exactly
a constitutional what?
Reform.
For constitutional reform, I know it's very important, but we cannot just scrap. There are certain things you need so many. That's why most government has actually left it ajar. Well, you need referendum and a whole lot. You have 4 years. Before you realize, you use all the money that you're going to use for others projects to do education and all that. So some of these things, unless we can be able to achieve them whilst we are moving as a country, Parliament will keep restructuring and re-amending laws to be able to meet some of these needs. If not that, for reform is a whole something.
Okay.
But if it's not reformed, all the laws of Parliament will still need to go back to the Constitution to conform.
Thank you so much for your submissions today. It has been an engaging conversation with you guys, and later today, Randolph and his guests or team will also come and give us some in-depth analysis of the swearing in of the 9th Parliament, which will be happening live here, live on Clock TV, Poll Watch. Another edition of our Poll Watch will be broadcasted later today, and so you have to stay with us as Randolph and his team brings that live coverage to you. But lastly, let me take your takes on the 9th Parliament. Nana, in a minute, what is your expectation of the 9th Parliament?
So, just as I mentioned earlier, what I would want to see is the independent candidates being independent, and then caucusing not based on political affiliations, but rather based on topical issues that will be going on in Parliament. If that, because once that is done, then they can actually represent the true reflection of the Ghanaian populace, not the true reflection of the political parties or political affiliations. And this time, I must say, we are blessed to have 4 people, and then there is one character amongst them that is very, very, or has been seen to be very, very controversial, or not controversial, or outspoken. That should be there in terms of what he wants to see government done, and now he's been given the nod to do that. So I feel that
mention his name.
A+.
Sorry, A+.
But you see, politics.
So yes. So that's what we're saying. Power.
So this is not another discussion. I just asked for your
thoughts,
expectations.
Yes.
So Rindolph, give us your expectation of it.
Politics is a very complex business.
Rindolph, you have less than a minute.
All right. So in fact, looking at the current parliament we are actually to usher into, the NDC have majority. The NPP have, around 80-something candidates, parliamentarians, and we have 4, how do I call it? Independent candidates. We expect a parliament that is independent per how the law has stated. A parliament that they have a mind of their own and also have the interests of the country and their population in terms of their constituency at heart. Because most of the times, Parliament actually do not act in tandem with what they are mandated to do. And so it affects development. And so we have seen a lot of limping laws which are supposed to be made well for the population. We've also seen a lot of bootlicking for the executives, which is actually impeding our democracy. We've also seen so many, in terms of a speaker doing so much politics in Parliament, which actually impede, the democracy. Was in Parliament, we expect that there will be, they are watching over the executives and then the judiciary. But then if the Parliament we have is not independent enough, then our democracy will be a limping one. Right.
Well noted. Thank you so much. Rindolph Efifa Owari is an analyst here with us in Clock TV. And also we have Nanaya Wasari, who is also an analyst for us on Poll Watch. My name is Miriam Abena Adede. I've been your host for this edition of Poll Watch here on Clock TV. And we are reminding you of our live coverage from the Parliament House that will be broadcasted on Poll Watch here later today, I think around 4 p.m. So you'd have to stay with us and get interactive with us. Thank you so much. Those that sent in 2 p.m. I beg your pardon, 2 p.m. So thank you so much for bringing in your comments. Thank you for calling in. Thank you so much for tuning in. And at 2 p.m., we'll see you again with Rindolph and his team as they bring you a live coverage from the event in Parliament. Stay blessed.
Clog TV, beyond the policy.